Hey folks, Chris here with University of Illinois Extension, and today I want to talk to you about pre-sprouting ginger. So ginger is a crop that is growing in popularity here in North America. We're seeing more fruit and vegetable farmers start to grow this, but it is also one that has been a staple in a lot of our diets since we were young. I mean, if you have ever had gingerbread cookies or ginger ale, then this is something that you're familiar with. You know the familiar bite and tang of ginger. It's also something that is very popular in a lot of different types of Asian-based stir fries and other dishes like that. So ginger is not necessarily something that's new to us, but it is new for us to be growing in this part of the world. What I mean by pre-sprouting is that ginger is a long season tropical crop, and in order to give us the most amount of time to be able to grow a decent sized harvest from this plant, we need to extend this season pretty much by starting the plants inside, pre-sprouting them in flats or in containers. People will even sprout these in glasses of water. Well, the first thing that we need in order to get these things pre-sprouted is actual ginger seed pieces. And well, I just so happen to have a couple right here. And I say seed pieces, but these are really the rhizomes, or essentially a modified underground stem that we use to plant. And each one of these has a small growing point that after a while of being inside of a potting mix in a flat, it will sprout a new stem, it'll sprout new roots, and that's where we're going to get our ginger plant from. In terms of where you can source your seed pieces, there's a lot of people that will go to the grocery store and they'll buy some ginger root and they will cut it up and they'll place it in a pot and container. Sometimes they'll just place it in a dish of water. You know, you can get sprouting that way, you can get ginger plants that way. We do recommend at Extension that you do order certified disease-free stock. There's not many pests of ginger in North America, but root rot is a big concern. If you get that in your soil, you can't plant ginger in that spot for a long time. And so that means when you buy something at the grocery store, that's made for you to eat, not necessarily for you to grow. There's no guarantee that it's going to sprout into a new plant or that it's going to be disease-free. When you get your ginger seed pieces in the mail or you go to the store and you buy them, it's great if they already come pre-cut and ready to just be put into some container or into some potting soil. Sometimes it's not always true. Maybe you have to make them and cut them into a little bit smaller size pieces. If you do that, make sure you're using a clean knife, and it's always a good idea to sterilize between cuts because, as I mentioned before, root rot can be a big issue, and if you're cutting this root up and you're using the same knife and you're not cleaning it and there just so happens to be a little bit of that pathogen there and it gets on your knife, you can spread it to all of your seed pieces that you are cutting up. Let's say you got your ginger seed piece and it's a little bit too big, so you do want to make some cuts. A lot of times there's going to be like a sort of a natural break area where you can snap it. But if you're going to use a knife, again, make sure that you're using a clean knife. You're cleaning it between cuts. What we'll do is you'll just kind of find that natural break point and you'll just cut it with your knife. And it will pretty much just snap right off like this. Now what you want to do is we do not plant this right away. We want to make sure that this wound here has time to callus over and to seal off that spot. Kind of like what we have in this section right here. This is an old cut that they made at the propagators, the seed source that we bought these from. They cut it right here, they broke it off right here, and over time that wound calloused over. It can take anywhere from 2 to 3 days for that callus tissue to form, and then you are good to plant after that. Like right here is a good example of some callus tissue. It's where they made their cut. It's an obvious cut, the straight line right there, and that tissue right there is calloused over. That means no pathogens can get inside of this wound right here. So what we're going to use for potting these up is we are going to use a soil-free mix. This is just a basic potting mix. Right here, you can use any type of soil-free mix that you have available to you. We're going to be using our ginger seed pieces, and we're going to be using 2 flats. This first one that we're actually going to plant them in, this has drainage holes in the bottom of them. Because I'm doing this inside, I don't want water running all over the place. I also have a flat that doesn't have drainage holes in the bottom, and we're going to place the one with holes inside the one that doesn't have holes. You can also pre-sprout ginger in whatever container you intend to be growing it in. So what we have here is just kind of a nice 2-inch layer of potting mix on the bottom of this flat. And from here, I am just going to start placing our ginger seed pieces in the flat, pretty much in rows. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together, however you can fit them all inside of here. when you are putting these in your flat, you do want to be mindful of any type of potential disease issues. So this one right here, the seed piece, it's probably okay, but I feel it's kind of soft. Kind of has this corky texture to it. And you know what? That soft tissue right there, really spongy. I think I'm going to avoid planting this one just in case there could be any disease possibility or potential lying in this one seed piece. So I'm going to put this one to the side. Maybe I can put this in a stir fry later instead. And there you have it. Once I have them all in here, I'm going to kind of give them a little wiggle, kind of embed them down in that potting mix just a little bit. Then once I have these all situated inside this potting mix in the flat, I'm going to then cover them with a little bit of potting soil. I just barely want to cover the tops, maybe an inch, maybe just barely covering the tops of them. We don't want to be loading too much potting mix on top of them, which might make it more difficult for the pre-sprouting process to occur. And there you have it. This is my flat of ginger. It's ready to go onto the grow bench that I have set up here in my basement. And on what I will be placing it on is a heat mat. So one of the things that ginger needs to have is bottom heat or some type of a warm environment. Remember, this is a tropical crop. My goal for this is to try to hit 80 degrees Fahrenheit in terms of bottom heat. There are some really neat heat mats where you can actually have a thermostat and set your temperature. I don't have that, so what I'm using is just basically a heat mat. The range that I want to try to shoot for, because I don't have any specific control over this, I just have bottom heat essentially, I want to get into the range of 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means I'll be putting this underneath my flat. I'll be plugging that in and I'll let this warm up. So in the past, I have used sort of like hard surface materials. I've used tile, I've used sand to kind of build up and hold some of that heat underneath the flat. It's worked for me, but in this case, you know, we don't have any of that, and really for the most part, I think it'll be okay. We're gonna have this heat mat under here, and I'm also gonna be covering this with a layer of plastic. Now, even if you had other flats of ginger, you could stack them on top of each other, because really right now it doesn't matter. It's going to take a long time for these seed pieces to sprout. I don't want you to give up if you're trying this at home, because it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. I've even had it take up to 2 months for my ginger seed pieces to sprout. So what you want to do in the meantime, while you're waiting for your ginger pieces to sprout, is you want to make sure that you're keeping this flat evenly watered, letting it dry down a little bit between waterings. Now, not bone dry, but just dry down a little bit. That can also help to initiate growth. You're also going to want to have your lights set up and ready to go. There is no need to wait until you start to see green growth, because once you see green growth, it's almost too late for lights. That stuff needs light immediately, so make sure your grow lights are set up so that you can keep these going inside, because more than likely you're going to have to wait a few weeks, maybe even a month, before you can plant these outdoors. Really, the criteria that we use for planting outside is when your soil temperatures hit about 55 degrees Fahrenheit and they're held at that temperature, above that temperature really, for the entire day, which means nighttime temperatures, it doesn't dip below that. About 50 degrees is where these roots and plants will then begin to suffer from cold damage. If you get down in the 40s or even 30s, you would wind up killing these tropical plants. Please feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to get in touch with us. My contact information is down below in the video description. And as always, keep on growing. Thanks for watching. Oh, delivery driver's here. I'll be right back.
Any water, Daddy?
Yes, come over here.
Let's go.
Oh.
Water, Dad.
Oh boy. More ginger.
There's water in there.
There's a lot more ginger. I'm gonna need more potting soil. Need more flats.
That's all you do.
This is awesome.